Action.
So guys, you see when you think nurture being, just think of like a one-stop herbal shop, you know? Where you can go, you can get your herbs, the skincare herbs, you can get your herbs for your internal care. We have things for the blood, for the heart, for the lungs, for the stomach. We have if you have spotty skin, the skin dehydrated. You see, women, your vagina itch. We have something for you. You have tenderness when you are overlaid, we have something for you. Hormonal imbalance, we have something for you. Men with the limp dick, we have something for you. Your face bumpy, and you need something to clean up the blood, we have something for you. You know? Your kidney, your liver non-function, we have something for you. Your skin dry and scaly, we have something for you. You don't know what to eat, you're not sure how to eat or what to eat, we have something for you. Same it. So every single thing you can think of, we have something for you. So when you're thinking about complete nutrition in terms of medicinal plants and stuff, just think Nurture Being. Trust me. Nurture Being? Yeah. Our one-stop herb shop.
All right, guys, today I'm here talking to the chief of the Moortown Maroons, Chief Sterling. Now, as a herbalist and a healer, a sick mind equals a sick body. Hence the reason of me being here. All around Jamaica, we have these misconceptions about the Maroons. Are they traitors or are they heroes? Should the ancestors be revered or should we forget about them? It's these thoughts that then lead to more further sickness of one's own body because we don't know how to see ourselves. We're confused about our own lineage. We're confused about who we are as a people. So if you know the truth, then the truth will set you free. Listen to this brilliant man talk. As a matter of fact, I'm not even gonna put no type of bias on it. Just listen to this man talk and then you tell me if you think he's a traitor. You tell me if you think that all the Maroons are traitors. All right? That's the purpose of this interview, and I want all Jamaicans to tap in. I want all diasporans to tap in because Maroons are not just in Jamaica, they're also in Africa. They're also in other countries that fought the fight. So you be the judge and let's get to it. Also, for the full uninterrupted interview, tap into Patreon. There, you'll see it all. All right, let's go.
My name is Wally Sterling, and I'm the chief of the Moortown Maroons. And when I say Moortown Maroons, I am including all the other districts that surround Moortown, to include Cornwall Barracks, Comfort Castle, Ginger House, Millbank, Kent, Brownsfield, and Seaman's Valley. All of those places make up the Maroon community around here. And you're talking about a situation where you have anywhere between 8 to 10,000 persons residing at a specific time. And there are more than 3 times that amount that lives outside of the community. They are a close community to us, like Windsor and Bellevue, which we don't nominally refer to as Maroon community, but fact is, a sizable portion of these persons, the persons that live in these community, are of Maroon heritage. They are direct, yeah. And it is true that throughout Portland, there are a lot of persons that are Maroon. And there are people, in the country of Jamaica that are Maroon from this area. Some would readily recognize and some don't recognize this, right? And we have that live abroad, especially like England and United States of America, Canada and so forth, as many Maroons as reside here in Jamaica. Because for us, if one of your parents is a Maroon, then the offspring automatically is a Maroon. And that's how we look at it. So today being the 6th day of May in the year 2025, and will continue. So the whole question of the people that were here before is the narrative that we get from those who were telling the history, are recording the so-called history of our people, you know. It was done by the colonial Bakramasa with the English and the French and whatever. Anything that they don't understand, they Anglicize it. It don't have to be what the people call themselves or how they refer to themselves. It is just you come to an area you don't understand, you try to put it in your way. But when I was in school, one of the books that I read as a history book, it said that a slave by the name of Coffee killed Granny Nanny. But yet, the same
Granny
Nanny. But yet, the same English history book, and they are recording, she was supposed to have died during the time when the struggle was taking place, right? But nonetheless, in 1741, the land grant was given to Nanny and her followers. But before 1741, she was supposedly killed by this. And this is to show you the level of disinformation that was being spread and how the colonial invaders look at things and how they want to get things to spread out. You know, it is common that they say, Granny Nanny catch a bullet with her bottom.
Yes.
Yeah. But here is the story. The book described her as a small, wiry woman. But then, on the other hand, they are saying that, you know, an African woman has a big backside, so you can fire a bullet inside there and you don't hurt her. I mean, that is it. But our footprints has the ability to catch a bullet. It's not that the British were firing at her willingly.
Right.
She asked them, yeah, you can fire. And she was just demonstrating to them.
Oh.
So she could just catch a bullet, turn her back and catch a bullet. So, you know, if it is recorded...
I heard this story and I made fun of it. So you're saying that it's true.
Yeah, she can catch a bullet. She wasn't the only person who could have done that. Let me say this. And sometimes people don't understand some things, right? And you say a lot of things, right? But let us look at, if you did a survey in Jamaica, right? Your census and say, I am sure that the majority of the population of Jamaicans is going to tell you that they are Christian. Either they are Christian and they have Christian belief and they believe in the Bible.
Right.
But in the Bible, it is written, Moses and the magician of Egypt. Moses threw his rod down and his rod became snake. The Egyptian magician threw their rod down and their rod became snakes as well. Never mind Moses' rod swallow up theirs, you know. The fact is, both became snake. That's the point I'm trying to make, right? The Egyptian also could turn water into blood. It is in the Bible. I'm not making up these stories. So if it is magic that these Africans were practicing more than 2,000 years or thereabout before Columbus and his Combalache got lost and was rescued by the people here. And then these people, how much you would have learned in 2,000 years? How much time you would have had to practice to refine your craft? You know, if you look at it from that perspective, you could understand clearly what I'm saying. Because if when they were in the motherland, that period of time, they were able to do those things, what would prevent them from doing the other things that we just described here? You see the point I'm making?
Yes.
There's a point here that's like, remember said, the reason why they think that, you know, slavery brought the first black people here is because they claim black people didn't have boats.
Yeah.
But when you look at way back before slavery, you go 3,000, 4,000 years ago, the time of the Egyptians, there's clearly boats. And you clearly see that they navigated the seas, even in the kingdoms of Timbuktu and
Yeah. So the thing is, right? The navigators that brought Columbus to these places were definitely the Moors, not necessarily the Spaniards, because the thing I would say about Columbus, he was a damn brave man, but he was a liar. Because for his time, for people to think that, we're going to sail around the world, and remember, the idea of the world was not Columbus construct. It was persons before him said that, and he wanted to prove. Hence he can sail westward to end up in India, which is in the east. I mean, ideas like that in those times were like bold ideas. But there are others who, just like how you can go to sea and you get wrecked, you lost your way, people could have come across. First of all, it was not the Spaniards who made the first trip, written, recorded trip across the Atlantic. A region did that, go to North America, but they didn't take it up, they just went back home. So one can argue as to whether Columbus was the first, the second, the third, the fourth, or whatever. Maybe things that we do not know now, but as science improve in terms of archaeology and stuff like that, you will find out down the road that these things are like every day they find out more about the pyramids of Egypt. Every day they're finding more about the pyramids of North America and those in Southern Africa and other parts in the world, right? And the pyramids in South America, because you're asking yourself a question: why is it that people so far removed from each other end up constructing pyramids with basically the same dynamics, the same thing? Did the Egyptian knew about the Aztecs in South America? Did they knew about them?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How people, thousands of miles away, how they manage to use this, basically the same method of constructing these pyramids. And pyramids are not just constructed at any given place.
No.
They are at specific location. What has to ties into the sun and the stars and everything like that.
Right.
So it take years to build.
Right.
Sometimes they might be built much quicker than we thought.
Yes,
The technology,
we understand they did it.
the technology for building them and building them so precise, as far as we are concerned, it is lost to us today. Right? We can build pyramids now because we have much things. But for a while, the specifics as to how they lift all of these blocks and everything is basically lost to us.
But what you see though is that it does come from descendant of black culture, because an obelisk only rebuild those things.
Yeah. Well, you'll find them in Rome, where they came from.
Yes.
It's something that you take away from other people thing and bring them to your place and you put them up, but it is what it is, So, as Maroons, we are here, we do all the things that we have to do and try our best to make sure that, we can basically keep the culture of our ancestors up and running.
Okay, so and let's bring it back to what you said about the schools. You say you're going to teach your own language,
right?
You can teach the right history,
right?
So here we go in Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traore has disregarded the French language and said they're going to teach their own language right now. And I just wanted to know, as chief of the Maroons, what are your opinions on Burkina Faso and Ibrahim Traore?
Anybody in history, for me, that stands up for his or her people is the right leader for the country. You might talk about democracy, but I am saying that as far as I am concerned, Westernized democracy have never worked. It never served the people. It served the elites at the top, not the masses on the bottom. It never served them. Because if you take, for example, a Jamaican scenario, if I have to go out and vote and you have to pay me to go out and vote, that cannot be a democratic system.
No.
I am voting because I get money to vote. I am not voting because I think that the candidate that I'm voting for is the best candidate. I am not voting because I'm doing it freely. I'm doing it under duress. So as long as those things exist, that form of democracy can never work. And it as I said, it suits the elites at the top, not the massive at the bottom. So what Traore is doing is what he knows that can work for his people. And a testament to what he's doing is the massive support that he's getting from the people on the ground. And as you say, all over the world.
He's also leading by example to other African nations.
Yeah, so you know, a leader like Fidel Castro, I've said, he wrote a book that he says, history will absolve me. Presently, we might not want to agree with some of the things that some people do, you know. Yeah. But down the road, we will see if it is right. I think that, you know, the French, even though they say they give you political independence, all of the African leaders that was assassinated in the last century and even in this century, the French have a hand in it. If the day Africa rise up and say we're going to march to the gate of Paris and we're going to wreck their system, what would be the rest of the Europeans would say? They're not going to agree with it. But they sit there and they agree with the wrongs that France is doing. Now, the Prime Minister of Italy speak out against these wrongs. So she's like kind of out of touch. She's not, you know, really there. The point is, wrongs will continue to happen and to be perpetrated as long as good men lay by and does nothing.
Right.
The people have come to the decision that our problem lies within us and we need to correct us. And in correcting us mean getting the French out of their country. You are buying uranium from these people from like 80 cents or whatsoever a kilo, and you are selling it for $200 a kilo. And they said, okay, fine. Let's just renegotiate these things. Let's put these things. And all of a sudden, the debts and everything that they own, these countries in Africa have to put their money in the French bank, the National Bank, and have to take it back as a loan. What kind of person in this 21st century is going to tell you that you're a civilized society and we are doing these things to people? So you remove the shackles from person's hand, but you maintain the economic shackle. People cannot do what they want for themselves. The uranium is producing electricity for millions of people in France, and yet these communities where it's taken from is without electricity. I mean, where is the conscience that these people have?
None.
They have no conscience.
But look at this. For centuries, Europe have the best working system. They remember, Trump said, black countries are shithole country. No, he's trying to show that it's not that thing anymore. We are African, we're going to stand as African, we're going to unite as African, not just as African, but as people. We have to respect us as a people. We are doing this for our country. Why you Western people have to interfere with our African leaders who are doing well in their country to develop their countries to make it better?
You know, as I heard one commentator said something. When you talk about the government of a country and you begin to refer to them as juntas, right? You are setting the stage to invade.
Yeah. A pretext.
Yes, a pretext, right? And you said Gaddafi was a dictator. And unfortunately, the president of the United States at the time was a black man, Barack Obama. Yeah. Condoleezza Rice and all those persons are black persons, right? But they pushing it. Michael Langley recently pushing this narrative. Even though he would go back and apologize for his stupidity. You understand what I'm saying? Because he should have recognized that he's a black man and he's being used. The leader for the Conservative Party in England today is a black woman. And what is she saying that does make sense? She's not saying anything. She is of an immigrant descent in England, but she's still speaking out against black people. She's from Nigeria. So the whole question is, what you're saying and what you do, it is for the elite. If the people decide that the gold is there, they want it. Gaddafi said you have to pay for his oil in gold. Saddam said you have to pay in euro. Hey, the American dollar is a pressure dollar. It's not going to sit there.
The thing about it, when they don't build a country, the only thing I feel, is try to lead because once the leader fall, the country fall on his knees. But so the main aim is that they want if they cannot control them, they try to kill them.
Yeah, so all right. So we know that they assassinate an awful lot of leaders, right? But the truth of the matter is, these are, to me, they are world politics. And in terms of geopolitics, right, the landscape have changed drastically. There's no unipower then, as it were, right? Controlled by one particular state. And people are waking up, people are beginning to understand. To me, the irony of the situation of what is said by American and the European power in regards to Traore, I expect them to say it. But it is the complicity of the other African leaders who are not supporting, who are thinking and talking tripe and stupidness, is where my situation lies. Right. Is that what Europeans are saying, because they will always say that. Right. But why an African leader don't wake up and understand that this is what has to be done to pull us out of the poverty? We're the richest continent in the world and yet the poorest. That is ironical.
No, that's not Africa waking up now. They're waking up now. They don't find themselves now.
Okay, yes. But stick a pin. Let me ask you, what is the strategy behind having black faces do what Langley did? What's the strategy about having black faces do what Obama did? Or why is it that they have black faces speak on behalf of getting, the jab? Why is it that it's always black faces that they put to basically trick us? What's the strategy?
And the question is, I'm going to ask, who killed Sankara? Who did the actual killing? Was it a white man or a black man?
The black man.
And you can look at all of them. Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, and everything like that, right? I mean, the French were directly involved in the Patrice Lumumba situation, right? When I say directly, I mean actively. In all of these, if you put the black man out there to do the work, he might pull the trigger, but who supply him with the guns and the ammunition? It is the white man, and he's doing the dictate of the white man. At the end of the day, the white man still remain in position, reaping the benefit illegally from some other black man, because some puppet comes up to carry out the work. And that is all they want. There's no qualm. It is the black man who has to look into himself to say, look, this is not right. We don't have to do it. And a generation of young persons are coming up now who understand that if we are to survive, we need to change our mode of operandi. Sure. And we have to support the genuine leaders that come in front of us. The ballot box is not always the way to get what you want and for the people to flourish. From the European construct. Okay, so they have an election in Romania. The person who won, what they say? They talk about all kind of corruption and everything like that, so you're going to go to a second round. Because the person who won the election was not their favorite. So they have the history of meddling in and setting up things like that. So, I mean, let us not fool ourselves, right? The man who is in power, or the man in the background that is reaping what he or she wants, will spend his or her money to put who they want into office. The same thing happened in Jamaica times and times again. We don't have to go far to look at it.
Okay, so as a chief and strategist, right? Who do you think then is funding? And you spoke about the elites. Who do you think is funding these poor farmers or these poor people living at the border of the Sahel and attacking Burkina Faso? With all of these militant groups that come out of nowhere and they claim it. How are these poor people who have nothing but cattle and cow, how are they getting machine guns? How are they getting missiles?
I guess when they take the cow to the watering holes in the morning, they find it. the guns are just. When the cow eat the grass and they pass out machine guns. They don't make them. They come from somewhere, some factory. Now we are hearing that guns and ammunition and weapons that were sent to Ukraine are end up in the hands of drug cartel. Drug cartel have, soldier lands, missile, rocket and everything like that.
That's what the scheme.
Yeah? No. The point is, what I'm saying, I don't know, but all I can say is that these people don't make these things.
Right.
They got to them some way, somehow, or the other. Who is behind sending them there? It can't be people with clear conscience.
But with something like that coming, it has to be a military default. It has to be because for the military like that, you have to lose the weapon. It has to be a military effect.
My friend, listen to me. We are told all kind of things all the time, right? And wait. Okay, there's one thing that says, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So no matter what the political, psychological, or physical position of the enemy of your enemy, you support them. So the word is something that I don't use so often because it depends on who practices it. If a state practices against another state, it is not called. But if a group of people in a country will practice against somebody else, it is called. Right? And even if the group of persons that are doing something to liberate their people, to give them freedom, and it is not in line, and they are not aligned to what the neocons are saying, then they become. So I try not to use the word in my, in my vocab. I'll try to look at it from, a different perspective.
Right. All right, guys, Nurture being here. And I just wanted to say that we're actually expanding our healing by trying to set up a healing center, a place where you guys could come in,
learn to eat, learn proper cultural practices for maintaining your health, just learning the correct ritual on how to maintain the home with good health, how to maintain your kids with good health, good herbs, how to eat, when to eat, right?
And you guys can now see the herbs that are going to do the work, where you guys can now learn how to utilize and to even identify the herbs that are going to do the work. So what we're doing is that we're focusing on YouTube as a way to generate these funds. We also ask you guys subscribe to our Patreon. In our Patreon, we have Herbal Talks, right? We show behind the scene access or content with our blogs and our videos. We talk history. We talk hidden history. We talk metaphysics. It's a whole university back there in the Patreon. So
I am the Neb Sorcerer Supreme, and this is an emergency broadcast. You see, humanity indeed is awakening, and many are tapping into their spiritual abilities. But there exists to be opposition. Opposition in the form of global elites, world governments, and the puppet masters who control them. These puppet masters have also placed a hex on your mind. Yes, you have been brainwashed, programmed, and controlled throughout your whole existence. And this goes especially for the black race. You are the race that has suffered immensely. You are the race that has forgotten your identity. Yet, you are the race full of love. You are the race of melanin that continues to smile during the darkest of times. But again, the hex is on your mind, and it is here on the Melanin Matrix channel, where both the black gods of this planet, as well as the other races, shall discover the truths of reality, history, and themselves. Yes, that's right. You will see the signs to your spiritual awakening. You will come across information that were intentionally hidden from the history books. You will learn of sound, frequency, and dark matter energy. You will fully grasp what are secret societies. Now I leave it to you, my fellow gods, to help this channel grow, for we will wake up.
So always we have you mentioned about communities. But I thought that your government was only in this community.
No, when you say Moortown, in that sense, you're really referring to
Communities.
the communities around, that makes, that the districts that make up the community. Moortown was, okay, fine. So this is the story. The treaty was signed between the colonial powers and our ancestors, which gave them land. Then they went back, they get some more land, because the land pattern between Nani and the government, because you remember, Nani did not sign the treaty, it was signed by Kwao. So the land pattern that they got, when Nani got afterward, is when they go back to get more land, and that was something that they negotiated in the 1740s, sign off in 1741. That include Moortown. That would be Moortown. And so it started in Cornwall Barracks. That stretches all the way down here, right? So it would have been Moortown without Cornwall Barracks in the first instance, meaning that the Cornwall Barracks came when they built a barracks during the Second Maroon War. And it was built to prevent, with the intention of preventing the Maroons from leaving from here to go down to Trinidad to participate in the cockpit countries, participate in the Second War. The fact is that our footprint wasn't going, because if they had built 50,000 barracks, that could not have stopped them from going where they want to go.
Internally.
They can travel anywhere they want, and they would have gone without you knowing that they are going. So they don't have to advertise anything, but it's that they weren't going. So the person who was in charge of the barrack was a man by the name of Cornwall. That's why it became known as Cornwall Barracks.
So how much land does Moortown comprise of now?
We control many acres of land. Because it's not just Moortown, Cornwall Barracks, because I mentioned Seaman's Valley, Brownsfield, and Kent. So it's quite a bit of land.
So with these lands now, say I'm a Maroon living abroad, and I decide to why, work on the island, because right, it's just right now people are selling the port. And so why, I have no money to go out and start up back life, and I'm a Maroon, how would somebody go about getting settled in the Maroon community?
All right. First of all, let me try to do it the simplest way. When our foreparents first came to live here, right, on the land, they divide up the land amongst themselves, basically by family. So even if a Maroon reside overseas now, and he or she want to come back to the community, first of all, you got to look at your family first before we think about the others. But another thing is that a population does grow, and an acre of land doesn't necessarily grow. It's going to remain an acre of land. So if in your family you had 20 acres, after so many years it divide up amongst this brother, this sister, and uncle and things, it use up. So you'll find that somebody who is outside for a while will want to come back. Now you got to look at other places where you're going to put those persons. And that's where we will look at that. Because we want to welcome anybody who is a Maroon who want to return to their heritage, to their homeland, to what is rightfully theirs. And we will make all the necessary adjustment that we can to accommodate them. But part of the problem as it is, it's not that we don't have land where people can reside. We do have, but it's the access road to get to these land, which we are presently trying to work on. Because we know that people want to come, and if they have access road to come to their property, to where they're going to build a house. We're not looking at land to cultivate, and we're looking at land to settle person for, homes. That's what we're looking at, because the land to cultivate is always going to be there. So that is what we're doing. Because even if we speak tomorrow, I still have some things to go over the other side not tomorrow, basically Thursday, to deal with some land issue. Because that is where we have enough land now that we can recycle people. But it's just the road, so we are looking at how we get the road. If you get the road, maybe we have to pool the money with the council and whatever to get some assistance to cut the roads.
Right. So now, can people now pay tax here? How is it? Funded?
Yeah, okay. No. The tax situation is always going to be a tricky one, because people ask that all the time that the Maroon doesn't pay tax. They actually pay taxes. I mean from ad valorem taxes, general consumption tax, and I'm talking outside the tax, land taxes now. So I would have named several places, right? Initially to say where the Maroons occupy. Right. There's no communally owned land in Millbank, Comfort Castle, nor Ginger House proper. These lands are owned individually. Right? And I mentioned Cornwall Barracks as well. The communally owned land in Cornwall Barracks does not include Rockall nor Cornwall Pen. In Moortown, the communally owned land does not include Joel or Nottingham Pen. When you combine those amount of land, when you put them together, the Joel, Nottingham Pen, Rockall, because Joel flow into and Nottingham Pen flow into Rockall into Cornwall Pen. Cornwall Pen is on the other side of the Rio Grande. Over on the other side of the Rio Grande, you have, Mount Cameron, and you have, Altamount and Marymount, right? Sorry. People do own those land, and they pay taxes for them. It's a communally owned land that you don't have to pay taxes for. And most family own land outside of the communally owned land, so they do pay taxes for land.
Okay.
We spoke about history and, about being taught false history. How do we then get the real history to be taught in the schools?
All right. If I wasn't born here, grew up here, and heard things from my parents and other elders of the community, right? Then I might be tempted to deal with the narrative that is in the history books.
Right.
But then the more you grow, the more you understand that history is written from the viewpoint of the writer, not necessarily from the subject that they are writing about. And the English would definitely have a bias in terms of what they say and how they say what they say. If you look at the treaty that was signed between our foreparents and the English, in the first article it says that our foreparents sue for peace. I mean, the Maroon sue for peace. Okay, fine. So when you sue for peace now, in international term, it means that you are the loser.
You what?
It meant that you are the one who was the loser.
Oh, okay.
So you approach the victorious party, the person who's winning, to say, okay, fine, let's have a settlement, right? Though our foreparents never left their stronghold in the Blue Mountain, go down to Breastswork or to teach people to ask the government that they want peace. It was the other way around.
Right.
So in the correct set, it was the British who sued for peace. But the British were always in the habit of writing up treaties and stuff like that. Our foreparents wrote nothing in those treaties there. They have a negotiation in the bush. And any sensible person would understand that, look, these terms and conditions that were written in that agreement was not exactly what was negotiated when they were in the bush. When they got out of the bush, it took them a while to write up these things, go through the assembly and come, and the terms and conditions. The most important thing for our foreparents was, you leave us alone, we are free to carry on the things that we want, and you do what you want. Okay, fine. Return slave that left the plantation thereafter. Okay, fine. But you still have to ask yourself the question, how many times did they honor that aspect of it? And you still got to see yourself as, just like how people have the opportunity to do some things, right? And they are not doing it. With slavery, it was the same thing, right? There are those who were content to stay on the plantation where they're sure of at least 2 square meals per day than to go out in the mountain where they do not know where their next meal will be coming from.
Yes.
People are like that. The British in particular, they make sure that they have 2 categories of enslaved people, the house slave and the field slave. And they will pit each other against each other, pit them against each other, right? So, the house slave think that he was superior to the field slave. You see the problem?
Yeah.
So if I'm serving the master directly, I am getting the crumbs that fall from the master. It might be difficult for me, to say, I'm gonna go out there. Don't see Jamaica today as what it was 200 years ago, or 300 or 400 years ago. We look around and we have a lot of fruit trees, we have a lot of things. It was not like that. A lot of these fruit trees are things that were imported brought over here. Out in the mountain, you have to live from the land, what is there. You have to hunt birds, things that are in the river, and you have to know the plants that you can just eat readily, just like that. You have to cultivate for yourself. The British recorded that they came upon what they call the Great Plantain Walk when they were fighting over footprints, and they estimated to be at least 1 square mile. You know how many acres are there in a square mile?
What then?
640 acres make 1 square mile.
640
Acres.
1 square mile.
You can do the math. A square mile is 10 square chain. So you can simply just tell yourself, say, it's 10 square chain is 1 mile. And how many chains is 8 chains that make a mile. So you multiply 80 by 80 and see how much you come up with. You see the point I'm saying? Yeah. So that is how you get us. That is how you get us. And if you can have that cultivation at that size in the mountain, persons were pretty much serious about what they were doing in providing food for themselves. To the extent that the British, they know that when they're in that place, they were on one side and they know the Maroons were over on the other side reaping. I mean, the person who led the army was chastised by his superior when he went back and reported that they said, but they never destroyed. They said, that's the provision ground, you should have destroyed the provision ground. But they would have sooner plant another provision ground anyway.
Right.
Because there are several provision ground, but that was the biggest one. Mm-hmm. So you cultivate these things to feed yourself inside there. But there are those persons, and even in today's society, you still have persons, if the government does things and say we are creating a job for you there, they are not going there.
No.
They still want to stay on the plantation, in the plantation mode and say, let us get things easy. Look how many things successive government in Jamaica over the years have tried to assist people with. And what did they do? They waste it, right? How many projects, like for example, a project like land lease that the government start. Government give you land, give you planting material, and was assisting you with money to get yourself up. Land lease. And some people, yes, they took the plants, they took the yammed and they put them under one tree and they never better go plant them. In project like with bananas and stuff like that, they just don't. Because that is human. And there are those who make good use of it. And the system continues even today. When you think about, the Maroons and the others, and you say Maroons, blah, 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 Maroons this and Maroons were traitor and stuff like that. Well, let me compare and contrast what we refer to as Maroon being traitor and what we have now as two political parties in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. That between them both, more persons have lost their lives than anything that you can think about that the Maroon did was to return any slave or anything or cause any friction. To the extent that if we think that what the Maroon did was wrong in signing that agreement, it baffles me why we would, after, you remember now the treaty was signed, listen on, the treaty was signed in 1738-39, right? Because of two different treaties. But if we lose it earlier, one 1738. 1838, emancipation of slave. 1944, you're looking at different, basically, we have universal adult suffrage. 62, we get independence. Then if we are accusing the Maroons of anything, we have 200 years in which to look at the treaty, analyze it, and to see what would have come of it, right? And if you're saying that the Maroons are a traitor, then you got to ask yourself a question: how comes we end up with two political parties that between them both, they cause so much damage and so much mayhem in the country? To the extent that if you live in one community and you support one political party, you can't move from that community to another community because it means mayhem. Tribalism. Yeah, tribalism. It is, if you can justify that to me, then I can say probably our foreparents did something wrong. Because if we are a learning people and somebody did something wrong 200 years ago, why on the face of the earth you come back and do the same thing over on a greater scale and make it causing more mayhem? Why can't we not have one political party where people vote for persons on their merit to sit in the House of Parliament? Why is it that we are telling ourselves that the system in England that works for the English people is good to work for us? It never worked, and it's not going to work. There's going to come a time when the people are going to rise up and say, let us look at this two-party system and see how best we can do something so that the people can benefit from it.
So I was asking, for people you said that back in the days, you have some people who relocated out of the Maroon village and would have gone to other parts of the parish where they would have, continued their life. Is there any way for people to to trace if their lineage is from here?
Yeah, there's always ways. Like for example, I maybe just gloss over the thing, right? But there's always matriarchs and patriarchs in the community. So each family either have a matriarch or a patriarch you can refer to. So what if your footprints are, elders would have migrated, they go outside the community. First of all, you look at the names, the family names. There are some family names that are dominant in the Maroon community, and there are some family names that never exist in the Maroon community.
Never exists?
Yeah.
Okay.
They was never ever a part of the Maroon community. But over the years, intermarriage and so will bring them into the Maroon community. Like, for example, you're here in Moortown and somebody talk about Harris or Osborne, McFarlane, Mackenzie, Sterling, Deans, Downer, Minot. These names are going to just come out at you like that, right? I go up into Cornell Brooks, I'm going to talk about Smith, I'm going to talk about Harris, I'm going to talk about McCall, McFarlane, Mackenzie, and, and the works. If I go over the river into Ginger House, I'm going to talk about Fulham, I'm going to talk about Harris, and, Comfort Castle, I'm going to talk about Whites and Gray and the whole thing like that. Mm-hmm. So if somebody could say, okay, my forefather, my foremother, great grandmother was an Harris or a Mackenzie or a Minot. If I tell me something like that, I'm going to put you on a Brownsfield. If you tell me my great grandmother was a Gray, I'm going to put you in Comfort Castle. If you tell me it's going to be a Fuller, I'm going to put you in Ginger House. If you say to a Smith, I'm going to put. If it's a Harris, I can put you in Moortown, or Osborne or Deans, I'm going to put you in Moortown. Mm-hmm. And then we can work from there backwards and see where we get. Mm-hmm. Because if you were related to one of these other patriarch or matriarch, then we can
we can have an idea.
Yeah, we can have yeah.
Okay. Because while you were discussing the history, I got very excited because we do a lot of research to understand our ancestry, not just on an individual level, but on a broad spectrum of what we were before so-called slavery. And we were based on the research, we saw without a doubt that we were traveling and we had our own tech, we had our own science, we had everything. But then when you go through the high school system, they teach you that Jamaica's history begins with slavery. And when I say to people, no, then they look for me like I'm crazy. But I said, no, it makes sense if you look on what is left back when archaeologists and those people who study history and what was documented, then it is evidence that other people existed on this island before what they taught us to be true history.
I always say to people, because I have a lot of discussion with visitors to the community and students and everything like that. And it's probably the first thing I always point out to them. The history of our foreparents never started the day they stepped off the slave ships and the shore. It started thousands of years before, because they were somewhere before they were brought here. What we develop here is another part of the story, right? And don't think that our foreparents learned a lot of things when they come here. They knew a lot before they got here. Yes, they did not come with clothes and implements, but they had the knowledge in their head. If you look at the thing from a medicinal point of view, from a nutraceutical point of view, they knew the plants when they were in the motherland, Africa. And plants are in group, in family, just the same. So what one plant in one group can do, if you come here and you don't have the same thing, but a similar thing, it's likely to produce the same result. So by combining the knowledge and by trial and error, you come up with something. So people are, as you say, they come technologically prepared for what would have been here. It's just that people just don't want to give them the credit. But there are some things you can curse about, and something something doesn't really matter. Right. If the rain is falling outside and you tell me the rain is not falling, fine, that's no problem. You think the rain is not falling, but it is falling, right? Okay. And I don't have to really prove any point to you to say that if I know that I use certain herb, it will give me certain result. You can accept it or you don't have to accept it, but I don't have to prove anything to you because I have already proven that. My 4 parents have already proven that. So I don't need your validation.
Right.
Your validation doesn't mean anything to me. But so, people have to look at it from that perspective. Who was here before? You don't have to agree, and this argument can go on for eternity. It doesn't make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing we know for sure, that some things that, people claim that never happened actually took place.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't have to worry about who are you that I have to prove anything to you?
Right.
Proving anything to you will change anything? A man that is convinced against his own opinion still hold on to his original opinion. And that's basically what it is. Mm-hmm. So we can always, look at, the ways that we can do things, or things were recorded and what we were taught in school and what we come to debunk now. Mm-hmm. Because science by itself have shown that these things that, we were taught couldn't really work the way that, saying. But as I said earlier, the persons who are writing the thing wrote to make it look in their favor. How could the British write back to tell the people in England, a bunch of savages, a bunch of wild and tame persons were beating the most sophisticated army on the face of the planet at that point in time? They can't admit to that, could they? Yeah. So they write the things from their perspective to make it look as if though, But at the end of the day, they secretly had to come and sort these bunch of wild, savage Negroes, barbarian, to sign a treaty with them. How could modern Rome, sophisticated, think that they could be overthrown by the barbarians? They didn't envision that, but it happened.
Right.
The only thing is that these people that you are describing as a bunch of wild, savage, and all these derogatory things are much more sophisticated than what you are thinking. They know how to fight you a guerrilla war, which you are still in the mood of standing over there firing valleys across, and they know that was damn foolish waste of time. Mm-hmm. They hit you, move on, and double back and hit you again. Mm-hmm. So there's no way you could, a modern army, as the British, could have defeated these people who were more sophisticated in their method of fighting than you were. It couldn't work. And even today, every guerrilla fighters have a better chance of succeeding more than, other, regular armies. It's just what it is.
Well, I can tell you, I feel good coming here because we came here 2 days ago, mm-hmm. and we went up to Nanny's bump grave, mm-hmm. and I was saying to Tamani that it feels good, mm-hmm. to walk this road because it's the first I've been back, I've been here. Mm-hmm. And it feels good to walk the road of our ancestors, mm-hmm. and just learning more about them and keeping them alive through history. Because there's gonna be a day when Black children are not going to learn that their history begins with slavery. They're gonna learn the truth. And now we're in the age of information, and more stories are coming out as to our true origin, who we are, how we were, how we develop ourselves, how we develop our tech, even though they suppress it because they were fearful, because they did not understand it. It is coming out, and because why I'm so passionate about it is because I understand how information shapes the mind. And if you teach people correctly who they are, then you get a better quality of pride and response and conditioning and contribution from them. But when you hide their history, that's a great disjustice. So I am happy to be here and to speak with you and to hear your perspective, because your perspective really does line up with what is true. And even though there are times when our ancestors had to go into agreement with them, for whatever reason, no sensible people will hold a part of your history, or just a small part, against the whole. Right? We see it, see how it benefited us, and see how it did not, and we learn and we move on. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm so glad that I got the chance to listen to the mind that you have.
Oh, so I, for my part, need to say at this juncture, Medansi, thank you for coming and you share views and ideas and having a civilized, a civil discussion and aspects of our culture, our history, how people see us, how we see people, what is it that we are doing at present and what we intend to do to improve a lot of the people in the community, because that's the most important thing.
Right.
I'm not doing this because of me. I'm doing it for the generation to come. I did not take up the position of colonel because, as a matter of fact, I reluctantly took it up. And I must be honest, but because I was asked to, and I went forward and I tell myself I might be there for a short period of time. But that short period of time I translate into almost 30 years now.
Yeah.
This September will make it 30. So
That means that you're a love colonel.
yeah, but with all of that, I want to do even more than I have done.
Right.
And it's not about me alone, but the council that I have with me, right? Because there are council members that have been there from number 1 Jump Street until now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we want to, I want to use the opportunity to really commend, the council members that I work with and the community as a whole, for sticking with us. I mean, we have got many things done. I mean, there are other things that we think we probably have achieved, but if you do not have all the resources, the funds, that is, to do some of the things is going to take time.
Right.
And that's basically what it is.
Right.
But you still go out there, you still write project proposals and everything like that, and you try to see how you can get, assistance, in going forward. But it should be told, sometimes some assistant that will come your way, you best if you leave them alone, because they come with some strings attached that you are not prepared to deal with.
Right.
And so everything that comes, you have to observe, analyze them, and to study them properly before you go head on into them.